Good evening, everybody, and how are we doing on this lovely Sunday evening? It's just gone past 6 o'clock, so it's time for our weekly live show. And what we're going to be talking about this week is fruit. So I want to know what fruit you grow, how you grow it, what special things you do about it, etc. and etc. Before that, I'll go through what I've been up to over this last week. But first, let's see if anybody is actually out there. And yeah, we've got people out there. Ballycillian is out there. Good evening to you. Turbo Stream, good evening to you. Oracle, good evening to you. Stuart Jackson, good evening to you. And he says, evening, Richard and the Veg Army. Hope everyone is well. Philly SBB has joined. Good evening to you. Stuart Reynolds has joined. Good evening to you. And Jenny Hullett, hope I'm pronouncing your surname right. Hello, everyone. Hope you are well and enjoyed this beautiful day. It has been a beautiful day, hasn't it? Who else have we got? We've got Rebecca Hawkins. Good evening. Hope everyone's had the spring sunshine today. It's been lovely, hasn't it? Digwell's joined, of course. Good evening to you. Graham Arnold, good evening, and what lovely weather today. Hargrave Gas, evening, everyone. We had a lovely day today. Spring is just around the corner. Cannot wait. Sue Smaley in the Facebook group has joined. Good evening, all. What lovely weather. To anybody who might be watching in the Facebook group, just do what Sue's done and let me know who you are, just due to the nature of how Facebook groups can sometimes work. Margaret Peacock is out there. Good evening to you. And Nikki and Nature, greetings from Birmingham. Good evening to you. So right from the back, I'm just going to ask you if you are enjoying this video so far. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to click the notification bell. We'll probably say that again, but I'm just saying it now to get things rolling. So what have I been up to this week? It's been an interesting week, hasn't it? Forget the news. We're not going to talk about what's going on in the news today. Recovering from the storm, I think, is the phrase we're going to be using. I spent a lot of time just tidying things up and trying to clear up bits of broken glass and stuff like that. Been sowing quite a few more seeds, actually. I sowed some cucumbers, some tomatoes, some chilies, some peppers, some tomatillos, just experimenting with those. What else have I been sowing? Some melons, got some melons underway, and I think that's all the seeds that I can think of. They've been sown indoors. Outside, down on the allotment and at home, I've been sowing some broad beans and some carrot seeds, getting those underway. And yeah, that is what I've really been up to here at the Veg Grower Podcast allotment and garden. What about you guys? What have you been up to? So Stuart's saying summer fruiting raspberries make the best jam. I'm probably right on that, actually. Richard Golding, hello all. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. Forced rhubarb from Stuart Reynolds. It's magical stuff from Stuart Reynolds. Got a picture coming up about that a little bit later on. Stuart Jackson, I got to go and dig up some autumn bliss raspberry canes tomorrow from a friend. Is it too late to transplant them? Thanks, team. No, you should be okay, is what I would say, Stuart. You should be okay to transplant them now. Just make sure that when you get them in the ground, they have a good amount of water. They're watered in well, and they are kept well watered. I mean, at this time of year, not going to be much of a problem, is it? Turbo Stream, spring hopefully around the corner, but March can be cold here. Yeah, it's warm today. It certainly feels like spring is around the corner, but March can be cold. That's very true, very true. But at least I always feel March the 1st for me is the start of spring. I always feel that when that kicks in, you suddenly can start feeling like you're safe to sow seeds, and the outside world starts to spring into life. Laura W has joined. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. Rebecca Hawkins, I'm sinking in seed this week. All good fun, Lois. She's been sowing lots and lots of seeds. Oracle, fruit, don't start me on that. I hate when new people got a plot and cut down trees, not knowing how long they have taken to grow. Any movement on Stuart's pear trees? We'll find out about Stuart Jackson's pear trees in just a moment. Anna Jones, good evening to you. Stuart Reynolds. Gages, quinces, tayberries, raspberries, lots of strawberries, apples, pears, black currants, red currants are just a few on my plot. There we go. Yeah, lots and lots to get us going there. Toby Stream, I have been busy bee this weekend, sowed some perennial seeds today. Yeah, fantastic. What have you sown? And Ballycillian, got none off my to-do list today, but when I got to the plot, 4 rips of my polytunnel, spent a day repairing it. Hope it holds till the end of the season, then I will recover it. Yeah, that's always the way, isn't it? You have a huge list of to-do lists that you want to do, and then something more important takes over. You know, I can hear Roxy barking outside. She might end up joining us in a bit. I don't know. She's been a bit barky lately. Stuart says he will take some photos of the pear tree to post on the group, and we'll share that next week if they do get posted. Jenny Hullett, running out of windowsills, need a greenhouse. So many seeds sown, but lots and lots more to go. Yeah, I know exactly how you feel on that. I don't grow on our windowsills, but as you may have seen in one of my previous videos, I've got a shelf system where I grow all my seeds on. That is full, and I've got to prick more seedlings out soon. Hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to prick more seedlings out and make the most of that. Turbo Stream, along with planting out some overwinter cuttings of hardy fuchsias and hardy geraniums on the plot. I may have busy bees sowing the things. Now, talking of Turbo Stream and what he's been up to this week, he has been kind enough to send me a video of what he's been doing. Do you want to have a look at that quickly?
Well, this is the soft fruit area. Well, one of two actually. This is the original rhubarb bed, and you can see there I've got some nice rhubarb crowns coming. So that was the original rhubarb bed. And then this winter there was a gooseberry there which I've dug up and put into the new rhubarb, the new fruit area which I've made. And if you swing round to the left, and these are the 2 gooseberry bushes that were there, which I need to get on and do something. I've cut them back quite a lot, but I need to cut out the middle branch and just try and tidy it up a bit. So that's the first original fruit area that my friend had, and we'll now go and have a look at. It's really windy today, it's getting cold. And this is the new area which I've dedicated to soft fruit, because it gets quite a lot of shade. Where the leaf mould bin is there, there's quite a few. I think they're, I'm not sure what they are, but it gets quite a lot of shade, so I decided I would make this into a soft fruit area. So I've transplanted some gooseberries along this section. I hope you're getting this, it's very windy. So this is going to be a row of gooseberries and black currants. I've put a black currant there, and then I think I put a, can't remember now, I think that's a black currant or gooseberry, and I've also put one down there. It's hard to see with the sun. And then as we pan left, that square there, it's got rhubarb in. I've transplanted some crowns so that can grow this year, and I'll hopefully harvest next year. And these are the gooseberries which I transplanted from my garden. I was giving them the red ones. There's no sign of life on that one yet. However, on this, as you'll focus, I don't know if it'll focus. There are some buds. Will it focus? No, it won't focus. And this is what was the brassica bed. I've left it for the birds to have a go at before I take these out. Hopefully this will be in a few minutes time I'll give you some soft fruit, you never know. And this bed is where my friend put some strawberries in. So rather than digging them up, I just took off the plastic covering that she put down, and I mulched them, and I'll just tidy that up once they come back into into growth. That's another area of soft fruit. Plus, on the other side of this, I've got 2 rows of raspberries which he planted, which unfortunately he now won't see the benefit because he's sadly passed away. So I'm hugely grateful to him, to be honest. So eventually these strawberries will probably get moved, perhaps. I'm not going to disturb them at the moment. I didn't do very well with strawberries last year. And then while we're down here, today, even though it's freezing cold, I planted some cabbages and cauliflowers which I'd overwintered. And I really need the space now for ready for when I start sowing seeds and growing seeds on. So that they will won't be very happy for a couple of days. I think it's going to mould up though. It'll get moulder. Anyway, that is a very short tour of my plot on a cold February windy day.
Right, thank you very much for that turbo stream. I think that kind of kicks off the fruit conversation. First of all, phone lines are open 07307 135 174. The number is on the bottom of the screen if you want to call in. A few comments came in during that video as well. Ernie, hi, evening Richard. What a glorious sunny day it was today. Trust you and the viewers are well and we're out in their gardens and allotments. I think people were. I think many people were out in the gardens and allotments today. David Williams, hi all, good evening to you. Hope you are well. Oracle, brilliant Stuart, got any problems? This is about the pear tree, which hopefully we'll see next week. Stuart Jackson, I've been sowing lots more seeds this week. More tomatoes, cucumbers, cucamelons, fennel, and more peas. Excuse me. Stuart Reynolds, I got 24 pounds of strawberries from my fruit cage. Fantastic. Fantastic. 24 pounds of strawberries. Fantastic. I see no Adrian yet, but I'm sure you will all share with me that the thoughts and prayers are with him and the family till they get over illness. Yes, I haven't seen Adrian yet. I hope he's okay. I know he's going for a bit of a tough time. Anna Jones says, great video turbo stream, and Kate Spratt has joined. Good evening to you. So let's kick off this fruit conversation. And when it comes to fruit, it's something I like to grow. I'd like to grow a lot more fruit, but it's one thing that I feel we could be, or we underutilize it. Fruit is so easy to grow in many cases, and the best thing is you buy a plant once, and more often than not, it will provide you with fruit for years and years. So where do we start with fruit? And I think it was Oracle that mentioned this earlier. Whenever I take on a new allotment or a new garden, I always like to walk around and just see what we have already growing here. So when I took on this garden, I could see we had an elder tree, which provides us with elderberries, and we had some of the wild strawberries as well. And rhubarb. Rhubarb's technically not a fruit, but I think for this conversation, or tonight's conversation, we'll throw rhubarb in there as well. And because of that, I kept those 3 in the location where they were. And then when I went on, when I took on my allotment, again, I walked the area and I found I had some raspberries already growing. And I had some red currants and gooseberries and black currants. So I kept all those. In fact, on my first allotment that I took on years and years ago, we even had blueberries, which I still grow because I dug them up and put them into pots to this day. So, you know, fruit is probably one of the most easiest ways to grow food for ourselves. That's my thoughts anyway. Let's have a quick look at what everyone is saying in the chat. I think Adrian was having his pacemaker fitted. You could be right, actually. That does ring a bell. And it's McGowan has joined. Good evening to you. And Oracle, I've tried to grow a pineapple but failed a number of times. Anyone, any advice? Yes, I have grown a pineapple, but there's a lot of effort that goes into it. You've got to start early. I would almost start sort of November time when you take it off a pineapple and plant that remains of the pineapple, and you've got to keep it warm right throughout the winter. It needs a lot of heat. A lot of heat is what I would say. That's one thing we can talk about a little bit later on. Nicky Nature says, for the first time last year, my plum tree was covered in little plums. While I was at work, a gang of pigeons stripped the tree of plums and leaves. Any advice for this year? Graham says, get a gun, Nicky. That might be one way, but what I would say is net it. Just cover it over with a net so the pigeons can't get to it. I know sometimes that's easier said than done, especially if it's a particularly big pear tree. But if you can't cover the whole pear tree, perhaps just cover some bits. The trouble with pigeons, once they know there's a food source, they will keep coming back. And David, how much shade can fruit tolerate, especially raspberries and strawberries? Well, actually, raspberries and strawberries are pretty good at tolerating quite a bit of shade. They do okay in the shade. They do better in full sun, of course, but with a bit of shade, they don't do too bad. In fact, one of the things that I do with my strawberries is I underplant my fruit trees with strawberry plants underneath. That way the strawberries sort of spread and they cover the area underneath the tree with more strawberries and prevent any, or act as almost like a mulch. They stop all the weeds from growing, but also we obviously add straw around there as well to help mulch the area. And then we're watering it, which also goes on to water the tree. So yeah, raspberries and strawberries don't do too badly in the shade. I think I think that's something to look at as well. Of course, thank you, Richard. Anyone else tried growing anything different than the normal stuff? Yes, I had a message from the person who was asking about growing fruit, who listed out quite a few things that they were growing. They were growing, what was it? Pomegranate and pawpaw, which both sounded very, very, very interesting things to grow, got to say. I've tried growing pomegranate, but not very successfully. But I'm also looking at growing things like figs and other fruit things that we can grow. So, yeah, I think there's a whole wide range of things fruit that we can grow. My home summer raspberries are behind a big tree in the northwest facing. They seem to do okay for fruits. There you go. Like I say, you're surprised just how much shade they can sometimes take. And Barry said, I only netted my plum tree once because you can't get the netting tight. Small birds got tangled in it, so never again. Yes, yeah, that can happen. I've had to cut a bird away from netting on a neighbour's plot that got tangled up in the netting. So it does. If you do use netting, make sure it's tight so birds can't get tangled. Just having a swig of coffee. So back to, like I said, we got a new allotment, got a new plot. We wanted to see what fruit trees we have got growing there. Now, they might be in the wrong place for your pans, but we got to remember, because they're perennial, it is certainly possible to move them. I would wait until sort of autumn, winter time when they are dormant before moving any fruit bushes and fruit trees. Things like raspberries will keep coming back and back. In fact, we get lots of raspberries here at home that were planted in house several rows down, and they've spread along all the gardens. We're slowly getting rid of the raspberries and just confining them to a certain space. I think strawberries can take shade too. Did better at home last year than the allotment. Yeah, I can confirm that they do handle quite well in the shade. And this goes back to what we were saying about the head starts. I think in Northern Ireland, it's hard to try and grow anything different. Never give up. Never give up. What I always say, the Victorians, they used to grow pineapples in areas much further north than where we are now. The Victorians, obviously, the stately homes, and they put a lot of effort into their they put a lot of effort into trying to grow fruit and things that were different because of their class and what have you. Roxy's barking again. She might come in a minute. I don't know. But yeah, I can hear her coming. I can hear her coming. So what I'm going to quickly do, Roxy. Well, Amanda's there. So that's all right. Amanda's on it. Yeah. What was I saying? Strawberries. Something I like to do with strawberries. I don't know if anybody else does this. I grow strawberries in hanging baskets, and a few strawberries anyway, and then I will hang those inside my greenhouses to get an early start. Now they're quite happy, quite comfortable inside those hanging baskets. They do okay. You just got to remember to keep them well watered. They do dry out a bit faster. And for food, I just use a normal tomato feed or wormery feed. Works quite nicely as well. So strawberries are probably the one fruit that are probably the easiest to grow. Plus, you get all those extra runners and you get more plants further down the line. They can take over, of course, if you're not careful. Ballycillian, one reason I'm not keen on netting, seen so many birds on our site caught in cheap plastic netting. Yeah, I mean, it is a problem if you have netting and birds can get tangled in it. I'm not going to deny that. There can be some bad things with it. But if you keep an eye on it regularly, keep it taut, and try and use bird scarers or scarecrows as well, you've probably got a better chance. So the biggest problem with growing fruit is that it's competition between ourselves and our other feathered friends who just want to try and eat our hard work, shall we say. I'm going to have a quick swig of this. Anybody else got anything different? Any other fruit that they grow? Now, what fruit do I grow? It might be another way. As I said, strawberries, raspberries, tayberries. Now, tayberries are fantastic. It's quite a big plant, and you get a lot of tayberries from one plant. They can almost act as like a hedge in a way. A hedge. I grow them almost on like a fence to create like a screening. They grow so big and so powerful. You get lots and lots of tayberries, or loganberries are another version as well. I grow bananas. Never get any bananas, but I do grow them. Figs. I've got a fig tree. We once had figs and they were delicious. What else have we got? Peach trees. Now, when it comes to growing peaches, I've got a little trick that I like to share with everyone. What I do, I grow my peach. It's a small peach tree, but I grow it in a pot. And from November to about May, it's inside my greenhouse. Then from May onwards, it comes out. The reason I do that, one of the biggest problems with peach trees is a disease called peach leaf curl, which it catches from the rain. I find by keeping it in a pot and being able to move it inside the greenhouse and out at the times when it's likely to catch peach leaf curl, I've never caught peach leaf curl since doing it. So that's something I want to share with you as an idea. Now, you don't, if your peach tree is a bit too big to move in and out, you could just put a piece of glass above it to stop the rain from hitting it. In fact, again, I'll go back to the Victorian gardens in the stately homes. If you look around those, where they have peach leaf growing, you sometimes see these metal rods in the wall where the wall was used to capture the sun and act as a heat bank in order to promote the fruit from growing. But they have these metal runners where they would place glass in order to keep rain off the peach trees. Let's have a quick look at the comments. Jenny is saying, I grow enough to share with the birds, that is, win-win. Yep, I agree. I think that's a great way to do it. Problem on the allotment is it always the things that eats our stuff. Yeah, I think that's always going to be a problem. I do prefer my preferred way is to grow enough to share and everyone's happy. I have a blueberry bush that I'm going to plant out this week on the plot. So blueberries, blueberries I would recommend you grow in a pot. Blueberries need ericaceous soil, which is a bit more acidic, if I remember correctly. Basically, if it goes in the ground, there's a good chance the pH won't be quite right for blueberries. So they need to mulch them as well, just because blueberries like a lot of water. So I don't know if you're planning on growing them. Just looked at the screen and saw I was going out of focus. I don't know if you're trying to grow them in the ground, but I recommend getting them in a pot. The problem with any pigeon deterrent is that they get used to them, so they need changing quite often. I agree. If you've got a scarecrow, which I quite like, I tend to try and move my scarecrow and square devices around to make it think that there's something different, almost on a daily basis. That seems to work quite well at scaring the pigeons off. I get a lot of seagulls, so I think I don't get many problems with pigeons because the seagulls scare them off. Ballystin is asking if figs are winter hardy, would like to try growing them. Some varieties, brown turkey is the one that I can think of off the top of my head. They are winter hardy. Certainly where I am, I've seen a huge tree growing in Canterbury, which is a bit further north than me. And this must be about 100 years old. It's a huge tree. So they are winter hardy, but what I would say, especially when they're young, you need to protect them a little bit over the winter to get them really established. But also grow them against the sunny wall of fence so they get a bit more heat just to help them out. They do love their heat. They do like their heat. But brown turkey is one that I can think of that is particularly good at growing, or particularly good for winter hardy and particularly suitable for our climate. Jenny Hullett, I grow everything in pots. Is there anything you would say wouldn't like it? I have apple trees, raspberries, pomegranate, etc. So happy to give anything a go. Interested in loganberries, etc., etc. I think pretty much anything will grow in a pot. But if you have apple trees, for example, you do need to choose the correct rootstock. Depending on what variety you're growing, the rootstocks define how tall or how big the plants they are, or how big the trees get. And with the smaller varieties of rootstocks, just ask in your garden centre if you want a bit more advice. Just get the right rootstock on your tree and it should be fine in a pot. Tayberries, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, Tayberries and loganberries, they could grow in pots, a bit like blackberries as well. I think they could all grow in pots, but I think they would do better. All of them would do better in the ground, but those three particularly, I think, would do better in the ground. Yeah, that's all I would say on that. My friend said he used one plant for him and one for nature. This is talking about the person who was losing a lot of their fruit to birds. I think that's also a good idea. Graham Arnold was thinking of growing red currants this year. Do they take up a lot of room? They can get quite big. The one I have on my allotment is about 4 foot tall and 3 foot wide, so it can get pretty big. But again, it comes down to the variety. There are probably dwarfing varieties. If you're growing it in a pot, they probably won't grow as big. Again, I've got no problem with growing red currants in pots. I've grown some in pots myself, and the plan is this year, the front of my house, eventually we're going to get our driveway redone, but I want to rip out everything we have out the front of our house and just grow some fruit trees, fruit cut bushes in pots in the front of our house. Blueberries, red currants, white currants, gooseberries, that sort of thing. Thomas, my blueberry is in a pot at the moment, but it is getting too big now. Just get a bigger pot. Just get a bigger pot for your blueberry. And again, make sure you've got ericaceous compost. Richard Phobes has joined the Bald Explorer. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. Lovely to see you earlier as well. Hargrave Gas. I have a fig tree. Cut it back every year and it still grows back up against the sheltered wall of the house. So there you go. I know he's in a much more northerly climate than I am. And it cuts back every year and it grows back. It's sheltered wall. That's the key thing with a fig. And Margaret does say, I forgot to mention this, fig trees they grow better when their roots are restricted when planting. In their natural environment, they tend to grow in little rocky, in the Mediterranean, like little rocky bowls of soil. I think they got, where the rocks have created like a bowl of compost. That's where fig trees grow best. And the ones I can think of in Canterbury that are huge, I don't think they are actually restricted in any way, but they do grow better restricted. That's a good point. What did I miss? Oh, cool. I have asked Mallard to stand and act as the scarecrow, but she won't play ball. Yeah, I've asked Amanda to do that, the same thing. But I've been watching Wurzel Gummidge lately as well, so learning a bit from that. Tower Stream. I took some cuttings off an old red currant bush, so hopefully they take. I had to dig up from the back of a shed. That's a great thing, you know. Fruit trees and bushes. You know, if you've got somebody, a friend who is growing red currants, and you don't want to spend any money, a great thing to do is to take cuttings and try and propagate some cuttings from those. Ian Meadows, sorry, I'm being late now. The other half live. 11,000 for 3 weeks on a boat. Oh well, moved the veggie pod and started setting it up again, hopefully away from the wind. As we know, Ian suffered a bit of damage with his veggie pod last week. We got a few photos which includes something from that as well. We'll go into a little bit later. Now, all this talk about growing fruit has reminded me that what's the point in growing fruit if we're not going to do anything with it? And then I got sent a couple of videos from a certain somebody who's well known for his cooking, and I keep saying I'm going to make a little siren or something up to send an alert that you might get hungry when I play one of his videos. But here it comes, and it's a great thing to do with fruit.
Well, you're right, guys. Quick jam recipe today. Garden Huckleberry Jam. Never done it before. Just a quick one, guys. These are garden huckleberries and not huckleberry as in Huckleberry Finn. Green ones and not quite purpley black ones can be poisonous, but when I say that, they're no more poisonous than a bit of green potato skin or eating raw runner beans, for example. Just making you aware. Pick the black ones, pick the squidgy ones. Anyway, so we got about 900 grams of garden huckleberries, 1.5 kilos of granulated sugar, half a bottle of Surto, that's like a pectin, and the juice from 1 lemon. I ain't got any lemons, so we're going to use ready-made. Right, first off, in with the berries. Been rinsed and strained, and I've just, even though I had so many, I've just picked the squidgiest, softest ones, and the ones that are jet black. Cup of water to boil them with. And we're going to boil them for about, turn it off, silly. Going to boil them for about a quarter of an hour. Oh, that's about 10 minutes now. Look at that. Can you see it? Look at that gorgeous purple colour, look. I don't know the fruit it does that. Oh, yeah, and the spoon. Right, I'm going to give it a quick mash in. It should be a little bit softer now. Yeah. Okay, in with a good dollop of lemon juice. Always a good idea. Use the old one. Always a good idea, lemon juice, when you're jarring or canning. Okay, then that's been a good, I don't know, half an hour at least. So, in with the sugar. And keep cooking until it's dissolved. Right, if your scum is like dirty scum, you can ladle it off, scoop it off, but this is like clean scum, so I'm going to leave that. Okay then, time for the Surto. So what I'm going to do, turn the heat off, and half a bottle it says, I think, yeah, half a bottle. And there's a measure on the bottle for half a bottle, which is quite good. So spot on. We'll just stir that in to get it set in. And then back to a really, really fast boil as quick as possible. Okay then, just to see if the jam is ready, what you do is the drag test. You've got a cold plate, in the fridge. You put a bit of juice on the plate, stick it back in the fridge for a minute, and I'll bring you back and show you what to do. Okay, it's been in the fridge for a minute, and what you do now is you drag your finger through the top of the skin. Look. If it forms a skin and pulls to one side, it's ready. If it wrinkles up a bit, like that, look. Yeah, that'll do. So, off with the heat and start jarring up. Let it cool down a bit. And this is hot. So, jar's hot as well. Four jars of garden Huckleberry Jam. I'll tell you what, I'm over the moon with this colour. I can't believe it. Incredible.
Fantastic, fantastic. Huckleberry Jam. I think I'm going to have to get some huckleberry fruit bushes or whatever they may be in my garden. That colour is beautiful. Now, when it comes to making jam, something I tend to do slightly differently, depending if it needs it. Raspberries, I don't find need that Certo or pectin because there's enough in it. I just take 500 grams of raspberries, 500 grams of sugar, and boil them all together until 104 degrees C on a jam thermometer. But if strawberries is probably the best example. Strawberries are low in pectin, so you could have the Certo that Digwell mentioned in there, or what I like to do is buy a bag of jam sugar, which is basically pectin already mixed in. Then I just mix the two together like I would any other jam. Just my slight way of deviation or slightly different way of doing it. Just to throw that out there if anybody has that. Now we were talking, where was I? Stuart Jackson says, I've covered my fruit canes with fleece in the past as I found the netting a problem for birds. There you go, fleece, that might be an idea. Covering them in fleece instead of netting to stop the birds. That's a good idea. Kate is saying, I've inherited loads of raspberries, autumn and summer. They've spread quite far. Will they be okay to be relocated? They will be okay. I think you need to do it quite soon, just so they don't establish themselves, and you can still get them the soil still moist enough that they can establish. So just get them in and moved and relocated soon so that they can really get off to a good start. I did it a couple of years ago with some of my raspberries. Not all survived, but enough did. I have taken blueberry hardwood cuttings from Jenny, and rooted them in water. Took maybe 2 weeks. Super happy. There you go. Taking blueberry cuttings. What I was saying earlier about taking cuttings and trying to get more and more people or more and more fruit bushes or fruit trees from one. Kate, I've really been loving watching Digwell's videos on YouTube. So I said I've got to come up with a hungry warning, a disclaimer beforehand. Toby Stream uses a nub of butter in jam making to reduce the scum. Digwell never fails. I know what the wife will have me doing next week. Brilliant, mate. Thank you. Indeed. Are you on a percentage, Digwell? No, Graham. No, nobody's on a percentage. It's anybody wants to send a video in, as long as it's related to growing your own gardening and cooking, it's allowed. Just feel free to send them in. Anybody can. So do I. This was more like bubbles and scum. Back to Turbo Stream, that was. Turbo Stream says it looks lovely, as does Anna Jones. I also make chia seed jam. Same method, but when bottling, add some chia seed. Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. I've got to start growing my chia seeds soon as well. I tried to grow raspberries in pots. They failed miserably. I know there's some varieties of raspberries that are specifically designed or bred to live in a pot. I can't think of the variety off the top of my head, the name. But yeah, there are some that do better in pots. But again, the trouble I always find with growing anything in pots is that they need a lot more care. They need the compost replacing quite regularly. They need a lot more feeding, a lot more watering, more importantly, a lot more watering, and a lot more winter protection as well, I find. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, of course. In fact, my patio area, I'm going to be growing a bit more things in pots at some point. Hopefully this year, if I can get it organised for that very reason. Oracle says you have to bring it Digwell on the show for a live cook-off. Yeah, well, you know, when we do the meet-up, we will have a bit of a cooking session, I'm hoping. Nice barbecue or something. So if he can make it, that is. I'm not going to make any presumptions. Still trying to figure out the day. Amanda and I were talking about this meet-up the other day, just trying to figure out the day that is suitable for everyone to make it possible. You know, trying to work around school holidays when prices are going to be, if people want to get hotels or anything, when prices might be a bit too high. So they're all things we've got to think about. I get my chia seeds in Aldi. They are cheap enough and good for the gut too. I brought some chia, a chia growing pack last year, which I've got to put into use this year. Just wondering if it was in my fridge, but I'm going to grow it this year. So, well, right, I caught up on the comments. So let's get back to the fruit. Fruit, you know, tomatoes, cucumbers, cucamelons, they're also fruit, but I'm not including those tonight. I'm going more for what we call our perennial fruit. Fruit that goes year after year after year. Like I said, I've got several fruit trees, particularly apple trees, because we eat a lot of apples. I've got a cider apple tree. This is a variety that was bred specifically for making cider. It makes a beautiful cider. Don't get much of it. I need more of the trees, but beautiful cider. And the great thing when it comes to fruit trees as well, as I said earlier, you can get varieties that can grow in pots, like on the correct rootstock, although they're much smaller pots. But if you want to try and grow lots and lots of different apple trees, for example, there might be a better way to go if you have a limited space. And failing that, if you're very good with your pruning and your training, it's possible to grow step over fruit trees, which is something I've done in the past when I was limited space. And then that's where you take let's say an apple tree. I prefer to do this when I made it myself from the cheap apple trees that they sell in supermarkets at January, February time. They're bare rooted. I think they're like £7 these days. Get those in the ground, and then I just bent it over so it ran in a straight line about that far. That's no good, about that far off the ground in a straight line along a bed. The idea being that you then step over it to get into your vegetable garden. I think they look beautiful, I've got to say. Look stunning. Takes a lot of training. You've got to really know what you're doing, but it can be done. And it's a great way, again, like I said, fitting extra fruit trees into your garden. At the time, we were particularly troubled. We only had a small garden at the time, and I was trying to fit as much as I can. Or espalier trees are another one that I like, and that's where you literally have a single columnar. Let's say this is your apple tree. It's just a single trunk going up, and you would have several of these. Again, I see these in stately gardens. Westing is one example. You can have in a small, let's say, against a 6-foot fence panel, you could probably have 5 apple trees like that. And then, again, because they're trained to not take up as much space, you can fit a lot in a small area. We've got this Luzak Ledwedens. I cannot pronounce your name. Apologies. He says hello. Apologies for trying to pronounce your name and getting it wrong there. Sorry. Graham Arnold, rhubarb will be on its way soon. Digwell must have a recipe for that. You wait and see what we've got. It's on the photos, actually. Nicola, sorry I'm late to the party. No problem. Glad to see you. I wouldn't worry about the price. Looks like they're going, but they're not coming back down anytime soon. we're talking about the meetup. There's times of the year when the hotel prices are a lot more than other times of year, and I want to try and avoid that, obviously. I will have a chat with Amanda. Digwell, they always get stuck in my teeth. The chia seeds, I think that's talking about. Jenny, I have a naturally short tree that I prune. I also have a Brayburn on a dwarf rootstock, which is fan trained to grow against the fence to save space. Yeah, fan training, that's another one I like to see. That's again similar to the Espalier, where it's literally trained to look like a fan hard up against the fence, so it doesn't grow out, it just grows hard up against the fence. Again, this is inspiring me to think about my home garden and trying to grow some fan trained. Got my neighbour's fence on that side, so perhaps I could, not against their fence, but train it up against there. I'm having a weird noise coming. I don't know if you can hear it. Laura W. I've started some apple trees as espalier this year. Still early days, but hoping it will save space by growing them across a fence. Indeed. That's what this. Please, Laura, please do send us some photos of how it goes throughout this year. I'd be really interested to see that because, again, it's something I really want to do more of. My black currant bush was from the pound shop. It had only one leaf, so I felt sorry for it and bought it. LOL. I've done that many, many times as well. And the discount bins as well in other certain shops and garden centres, when they've got some fruit trees that are looking very sorry for themselves, but they just need, or fruit trees and bushes, that is, just need a bit of TLC. I often buy those and then bring them back home and nurse them. I've got to go through all my fruits because I got like what was it called? A lingonberry. I got one of those that was in a discount for a few quid, and I brought it back and it recovered quite nicely. I think last year I also got some blackcurrant bushes and other fruit bushes that hadn't been looked after in a certain high street shop that begins with W and Ilco. I'll leave it like that. Because they weren't looked after very well at all well, they were selling them off for 10p each, and I bought pretty much all of them. They didn't all survive, but some of them did, and they were in pots ready to go in my front garden. 10p, even if it fails, you can't go wrong with that. Lidl has apple trees on offer this week, and Wilco had them as well. There you go. Lidl and Wilco, if you're after fruit trees. If we are stuck, Phobes will let us sleep in the back of his van. He may well do. He may well do. I will have to have a meeting with Amanda to work all this out. I know I keep saying and promising this. We are going to do it. I think we're safe to do it this year. Ian Meadow says, high street shop beginning with W, Woolworths, still going down south then? No. What are they? Not the Woolworths that we know. I think they still have an online shop, don't they, Woolworths? But no, Woolworths on the high street have definitely gone. But no, the other one that begins with W. A bit like a lot of these places, Wilkinson's and, I just said it, they have some very good gardening stuff, don't get me wrong. But some vet stores are not really set up for growing plants. And I think they're under artificial light. They're not watered as well as they could. They're not looked after as well as they could. They're going to have problems. And doesn't turn out for growing very well. What month are you thinking of? I was thinking August, but that's middle of summer holidays. So possibly September is when I'm thinking might be a better time. Did Lidl have patio fruit trees? I don't know on that one. We'll put that back to Digwells, was it, who said about it? Do they have patio fruit trees? I have discovered honeyberry needs another plant for pollination and explains why I have flowers and no fruit. Are there any others who need a friend? Right, yes, good one. Good one, this one. Again, there's a huge list of some apple trees, even in fact, for that. Some apple trees can be pollinated themselves, and they're classed as self-pollinators. Other apple trees need another tree to pollinate them, and other apple trees need 3 trees to pollinate them. It's all about the variety. And it's not a case that you can have 3 of necessarily the same apple trees. There's a bit of a science. You've got to have some that need pollinated and some that flower at different points in order to make it work. It's a very complicated thing in some cases with apple trees. Pear trees often need a second pollinator. Kiwis is another one that I can think of, unless you get a particular variety called Jenny, which is a self-pollinated one. But kiwis often need another kiwi plant to pollinate that as well. But generally what you find, if you're growing on an allotment, because so many people are growing particularly apple trees or pear trees, the standard fruit trees, you don't need to worry so much about it because there's enough in the area. If you're growing at home and you don't think anybody else any of your neighbours are growing apple trees or anything, then you might need to add a few apple trees to it in your garden. But again, what is that noise? Oh, it's this. I've just worked it out. I powered this up, didn't I? And it's squeaking. Sorry. Yeah, quite a list. Again, it's about looking at what varieties and what trees you have beforehand and doing some homework. I miss Woolworths. Good evening from Beatrice, everyone. Apologies for being late. No problem. Hope you are well. Graham Arnold, I always buy any fruit and vegetable seed from a local family-run nursery. Like to support them rather than the big operations. I agree with that, actually. I prefer to go to a garden centre these days. But the reality is, there's a reality that people who have an allotment or are just looking to save money, quite like that, aren't going to go and spend a lot more money by going to a local family run. Unfortunately, as cruel as that sounds, people generally want to save as much money as they can. You get better, of course, you get better choice and a better aftercare, better help when selecting from your local family run nurseries. But people don't often think of that when it comes to buying it. They often go, I want the cheapest that I can get. If I can go to Tesco's and pay a £5, that's easy. Little fruit trees were dwarfs, so yeah. You need a roll call, Richard, too. Who all is going and trying to work it around everyone? Yeah, I spoke to my IT guy. We were going to set up a form on the website to sort all that out. Jenny Kiwis, it's meant to be. Yes, yeah. No, Jenny Kiwis are fascinating, actually. I had one once. It produced some beautiful kiwis. Didn't get a huge amount, but did get some beautiful kiwis. Bit difficult to keep throughout the winter, though. But it can be done. That shed is definitely haunted. I don't know what's going on. Fingers crossed, the new stuff to repair the windows in the greenhouse should be here this week. Cost more than I paid for the whole greenhouse. Okay, so it was 40 years ago. And if you're wondering what he's on about, we'll find out when we go through these photos. I think we'll go through the photos right now. And that should be, there we go. That's how it should be. So, TurboStream has, let's get rid of that banner because it's hiding. TurboStream has shared this photo of a purple flower. Not sure what the flower is, in all honesty, but I liked it. As well as this white flower. Also looks rather pretty. Nice to see him out at this time of year too. And TurboStream has also been mulching his plot, getting ready for this growing season. Stuart Jackson has been pricking out lots of his plants. Stuart Jackson does grow a lot of plants and sells them outside his house for the Brain Tumor charity. And off to a good start already. A good selection. I think they look like aubergines or chilies or something by looking at that. Stuart has harvested some of his forced rhubarb. Somebody mentioned rhubarb earlier. There you go. There he's collected it. He's chopped them up, nice and pink, don't they? Look really nice and pink. And then he's turned them into a crimble crumble. Delicious. Gotta say, forced rhubarb is so much sweeter and nicer than your standard rhubarb. Now, Ian Beddoes, to start this conversation off, he's suffered some damage to his greenhouse. As you can see, glass pane is smashed. Not a happy bunny, I can imagine. And here in his growing area, also damaged with a veggie pod falling over, etc., etc. Wasn't happy last week, but I'm pleased to say he hasn't lost his sense of humour. As you can see with this little meme of somebody planting a load of bottles in the garden and saying that is a beer garden. And now finally, Digwell has given us something to look forward to with this little meme as well. Spring is just around the corner. And that it is. Tuesday is officially the day that spring starts, I believe, and I'm looking forward to it. So please do keep sharing your photos. Share them in our Facebook group, or you can send them to me, richard@theveggroundpodcast.co.uk, or you can send them to me via social media. Just direct message me any way you want. It's never a problem. Annie says the flowers are hellebores. Don't doubt that. And Nicola also says they were hellebores. Time Extreme, flowers is a hellebore Christmas rose, I think. Time Extreme also confirms that they were hellebores, as does Margaret Peacock. There you go. Just goes to show my knowledge when it comes to flowers is not up to what everyone else is. Anna Jones, I grow Discovery in James Grieve apples together. Both group 3, very pleased with both. Yes, this is what I was saying earlier about having 2 varieties that need to pollinate each other. Discovery and James Grieve, I believe, work quite well together. There are some that, as I said, they need 3 trees to pollinate each other. It works really. It's quite complicated, but all I say with that is before you make your purchase, just research the variety that you're buying and go from there. My particular favourite varieties of apple trees, I've got 2. I've got Sunset, which is a good all-rounder. We have it grown in our garden. It's a good eating apple. It's a good dessert apple, a cooking apple, and for juicing, and also making cider. And then I've got a variety called Kingston Black down on the allotment, which is beautiful for cider. Some of my favourite there indeed. Remember, you can take cuttings from fruit trees. I followed Richard's cuttings podcast with success. Whoop, whoop. There you go. That's what I say all along. You know, cuttings are easy to take. Again, this comes back to what I said earlier about trying to save money. Looks like hellebore. Talking about that, yeah, that's it. Any good varieties of melon to grow in a polytunnel that don't take up too much room? Melons, unfortunately, will always take up quite a bit of room, but you can train them to grow above and around. Well, I find the Cantalate melon quite good inside. There's one to look for. Melons outside are a bit tricky because they need a lot of heat, and they need a lot of training. And then the melons can get very, very heavy as well. So as those melons grow, you need to support them in something or another, fruit net or something, just so it doesn't fall off and snap. Melons are something really quite tricky to grow, but when you do grow a good melon, good God, is it worth it? Time Extreme, I mulched my fruit bushes this weekend too. Definitely. Only says spring is definitely around the corner. On the allotment, they got a price of £10 for 2 foot by 2 foot. £10. I paid £6 for a sheet in my local glass place. I know when I had to buy a lot a few years ago for Grandad's greenhouse, I think I paid like £150 for it, which wasn't happy, especially as more paintings of those have broken again. What I do now, keep an eye on Facebook Marketplace for anybody who's getting rid of any greenhouse glass, and just keep that in my shed just in case. That way it doesn't cost me 150 quid whenever we have a storm come along, and I can quickly go and fix them. Buy a rootstock with 3 different apple varieties grafted to it, pollination sorted. That is true. So it is possible. I think somebody's done up to 50 different apple varieties on one tree by grafting all of them together. The trouble is, after many years, they all blend into one variety. So it's not ideal for the long term, but it is a good idea. If you can graft, which is very, very tricky, but if you can graft, you can do your own. The hellebores were my late mum's. I moved back into the house after she died. I think of her every spring when they flower. How lovely is that? Has anyone else noticed the price of canes have gone up, or is it just local to me? I haven't bought canes in years. Last time I bought canes, I felt that one, they were far too expensive, but two, they just seem so flimsy these days as well. My granddad used to grow his own bamboo canes in the bottom of his garden. A few years ago, I had to go and clear it all out because they had taken over. He had a huge garden, but these bamboo canes did take over. My cousin would actually cut them down and sell them as well. What I'm now moving on to, as some of you will know, I grow a hazel tree that I coppice, and I'm using those canes to grow in place of bamboos. I think they look so much nicer, in my opinion. Nicola also says, often see free greenhouse glass on Facebook Marketplace as well. I see that. I lost all 6 of my melons last year. Probably won't bother again as they take up so much room. They don't take up, I find they don't take up so much room on the ground. It's the size of them. But I try and train them in my greenhouse to grow up and around. It's a right pain replacing grass in a greenhouse. It is. I get free bamboo for free in Cornwall. I think, does Cornwall grow wildly down there? I know places bamboo does grow wild in the UK. Worth looking at. Right, guys, I'm just going to remind you, if you haven't done so already, please do give us a thumbs up, give us a like, please do give us a follow, please do subscribe, click the notification bell and get notified whenever we go live. You know, I've got to say it because of, otherwise I get told off. Yeah, loads of bamboo grows in gardens. Now, another thing we can do with fruit, and this has been another warning that you're about to get hungry. You know what? I'm not going to introduce it. I'm just going to play it.
Quick word of warning, all you need are the jet black berries. Don't pick the purple ones, don't use the purple ones, don't use the green ones. If they're a dull black colour, even better. Right, quick run through the ingredients. Right, 4 cups of garden huckleberries, 1/4 cup of baking soda, water to cook with and wash with, etc, etc. 1/4 cup of lemon juice. I'm not going to squeeze my own, so I've got a bottle of it there. 1.5 cups of sugar. Granulated castor will do, doesn't matter. A bit of nutmeg, 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, and going to grate my own, 1/2 teaspoon of salt that's in there as well. Butter for dotting the pie with. And I'm not going to make my own pastry, so I'm using ready rolled short crust. Okay, so they cleaned up very well actually, very little debris on them. The odd leaf that you miss, you know. So that's 4 cups. Put that out of the way. And what we want now is just enough water to cover them, just nearly cover them. We don't want to totally cover them. That should do it, I reckon. And start heating. Look at the colour of that lovely indigo blue, I suppose you'd call it. Look at that. Beautiful. Anyway, we're going to ruin all that. Because what we're going to do, look at that, you see it? What we're going to do is put in 1/4 cup of baking soda. A little bit at a time, and here's the 1/4 cup of baking soda, a little bit at a time. And it's going to, look at this, look, I'm going to get my spoon out of the way. It's going to foam like mad. It's almost like a Harry Potter thing going on here. Okay, that's 1/4 cup. Might need a little bit more, not sure. I'm going to carry on cooking. And it will carry on foaming. It is so weird. So, I'm going to let that carry on, just gently simmer boiling for 10 minutes, I reckon. Oh, there we are, totally changed now. Look, thick green colour. Emerald green, I'd say that was. Yeah. It's all chemistry experiments at school, this. Well, about 6 minutes in. Pretty unappetising at the moment, guys. Okay, we're 10 minutes in. Not the most edible thing in the world at the moment. So we're going to do, we're going to drain it, strain it, and bring it back. Okay, back again. Here's the liquid that come out. Well, dark green. I don't know what you can use that for. It smells absolutely revolting. Here's the berries, and they look just as revolting, to tell you the truth. So back in with them. About 1/3 of a cup of water. A bit more perhaps. What we need there then, about 1/4 cup of lemon juice. All being well, they should like change colour again. And here we are then, going back to a purple colour. Right, so we're going to now leave that about, I don't know, 30-35 minutes will do. And then start adding the rest of the ingredients. Right, here we are, it's like a nice royal purple colour again now, look. I don't know, about 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. I'm going to use fresh because I've got some fresh ones. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. 1.5 cups of sugar. One pie filling. That's better, a little bit of volume there now. Okay, a little knob of butter just to loosen things up in the pie. Not too much. Let's see if we get one. Okay then, grease your pie dish, ready rolled pastry, short crust this time. Poke it in the bottom, I'm not blind baking it. Spoon the mix in, a couple of knobs of butter on top. Put the lid on, trim the lid, and I'm looking all cack-handy because it's back to front of me. A bit of a crimp round the outside and brush with water. Couple of rolls. And see you in about half an hour. No, 40 odd minutes, I think. 40 minutes. Well, there we are then. One garden huckleberry individual pie. Should have been bigger, I think, but anyway, it's been in the oven 40 odd minutes. It's been cooling down for 10 minutes. Let's give it a go, eh? Now that, I can't describe it. It's like nothing I've ever tasted before. I can't really put my finger on it. Really, it's sweet. It's a little bit blueberry. It's quite perfumey actually. Hang on. Well, yeah. I'll tell you what, guys. That's a double thumbs up from me. That would be lovely with a squirt of cream or a bit of custard. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
I'm hungry again. I've had dinner already, and I'm hungry again. Digwell, you've done it to us. Let's quickly go to the comments. Graham Arnold says more airtime than Putin for Digwell. Well, I get more airtime, so what does that make me? Anybody wants to make a video, then please do feel free. But I love Digwell's videos, so I think great to do at sea. I think I will go for a walk to the wood, then cut some hazel. Just make sure I park the car safely. Be careful. I'm going to pretend we haven't heard that, just in case it comes back to us. Once again, I find myself heading down the M5 after this show. Don't you just. on that. Another great video, Digwell, indeed. What does Digwell work for, as he's definitely a top chef? I'll let Digwell answer that. Ladies and gentlemen, the hairless baker. Did anyone watch the program on renovating a garden where they spent 75 grand and ended up with what looked like a posh car park? No, I don't watch TV, so don't know. What did the baking soda do, Digwell? Did it draw out the flavour? And Oracle says, Digwell says he's an ex-engineer. There's a weird rumbling noise going on. That's an airplane. I haven't heard that for a couple of years. Oh, that's annoying. I used to like not hearing airplanes fly over. It's not military. It's the we're not far from Gatwick here. Certainly on the flight path, and they fly over from time to time. Anyway, back to fruit. So we've talked a lot about what fruit we like to grow in all the different varieties, but there's something we haven't really touched on, which is how to care for fruit. Now, I think we often, or fruit is very easy to look after. Generally speaking, we pot it into the garden, we keep it well watered, we keep it well fed, and it will be there for years. What I find helps, obviously, this is not going to surprise anyone, but mulching the base, either with strawberries or grass clippings or anything like that, does help a lot. Reduces weeds, holds onto the moisture, which all fruit need a lot of water to grow successfully. But the other thing is pruning. Now, pruning is, I think, something that we're often a bit afraid to do because it seems counterintuitive to cut off any of the stems or the branches in order to produce more fruit. But it does help them, many fruit and trees, to produce more fruit. But there's some you have to prune on a yearly basis. Autumn raspberries are probably the best example. Every February I just go along my autumn raspberries and cut them all down at the base. Summer fruiting raspberries, they fruit on last year's wood. So you cut last year, you let them grow, and then the second year the next shoots grow, and you cut back the first year's growth on the second year, if that makes sense. And then some black currants are one I can think of. You need to cut the 3-year-old wood, the older wood, in order to help produce or help encourage them to produce more fruit. Again, it's can be very, very confusing. So just look at what you're buying, or do your research before you buy to find out how often, how much you have to prune. And when it comes to pruning, I spoke about this on the podcast a few weeks ago, actually. When it comes to pruning, particularly fruit trees, you want to try and get it so you can allow as much light and as air through. I always first cut off the 3Ds, dead, diseased and damaged. Do that every winter. And then I stand back and look at and see where there's any trees that might be, or any branches that might be crossing another branch, cut that off. And then just try and make as much to allow light and air through. And then there's another thing that Oracle mentioned with a few weeks ago with Stuart Jackson's pear tree, about training the limbs up. And I was at a seminar once where somebody was talking about fruit trees. And what he said, if you want a tree, you have your branches, he stood there doing this, you have your branches outgrowing like that. But if you want the fruit, it's not going to work because I'm sat down. You have your branches growing lower down so you can reach them. And Oracle said use a bottle of water attached to the branches to pull them down. It makes a lot of sense. Look, Nicola, I'm in Ringmer, just outside of Lewis this weekend, and back to Cornwall either in the morning or Tuesday. Leave 2 a.m., 6 a.m., 6-hour drive, I think that is. Ringmer, got a lovely animal rescue place there, just north of Lewis. I know it very well. One of my favourite customers. Graham says it's his private jet. He's off to Digwell's for tea. Indeed. The baking soda takes up most of the acidity as they are very tart. The lemon juice puts it back to a decent level. Weird stuff, strange fruit, huckleberries. That's interesting. I did cut my autumn raspberries today. And I see, Digwell, clever, ain't you? Defo needs to do a cook-along. Digwell definitely needs to do a cook-along. I think that's right. Monty says, prune fruit trees so a bird can't fly through it, plus all that said. Yeah, Monty does say prune fruit trees so a bird can't fly through it. A bird can fly right through it without stopping. It's a good way to it. The old-fashioned way, or the old saying, was that you could throw a cat through it, which I'm not going to repeat, although I just said it. But a bird flying through it is a much more polite way to do it. Raceheads, yes, they're a customer of mine. Fascinating place. I prune all my fruit trees hard every year. I like to be able to reach the fruit without climbing. Exactly right, exactly right. And that's what this bloke at the seminar was saying. If you want a tree, you grow your branches up. If you want fruit, you grow them so you can reach them. Quick question, strawberries, can I pot them in a greenhouse? Will they fruit earlier or will their plant be leafy? You can pot them in a greenhouse. I do that with mine and you get an earlier crop. I do them in hanging baskets and then they can go outside. You get a much earlier crop. They do need a lot more watering, obviously, because they're going to dry out. They are garden huckleberries, not huckleberries. A big difference. Yes, apologies. Garden huckleberries. Big difference. Should I prune the newly planted gooseberries or wait till next year to re-establish? I think what I've seen of your gooseberries, I think if they're newly planted, they should be okay. If the wood does look a bit old, I'll give them a year and then go from there. That's what I would say. I can't remember if gooseberries are on 2-year wood or 3-year. I think they're on 2-year wood. So first year they grow their branch, and the second year that branch will grow fruits. So give it a year and then see what happens. Like so many things, when I first plant anything out, I like to do as little with it as possible. The other thing to say actually about planting fruit trees and bushes, in the first year when you first plant them, you want to remove the flowers. You don't want them to produce fruit because you want to try and encourage them to establish. I've never done that, in all honesty. I'm far too impatient to do that sort of thing. But the advice out there is to remove the flowers so they don't produce fruit, and that they put all their energy into putting their roots down and establishing themselves. Don't know if it's been mentioned from Ballysilly, but I grow pineberries. Love the pineapple taste. Yes, I love pineapple anyway, but pineberries, they're like a cross between a strawberry and pineapple. They look like strawberries, except they're white, but they got the taste of pineapple, and they are really delicious and really tasty. Something I quite like as well. If you want to zap yourself in, I haven't mentioned it much today, but if you want to zap yourself in, the link is going up in the comments right now. Or if you want to call in, 07307 135 174. I've got about 10 minutes left to go tonight. Bit of a tricky start this evening, I know, but we got there and we got it going. So when it comes to care, mulch regularly, keep well watered. Feed, I like to use a tomato feed. Add plenty of compost and well rotted manure once a year as well. And prune. On a whole, I don't think... There we go. I thought we were going to get a caller at that point. Let's find out who's on the phone. Hello, caller. What's your name and where are you coming from?
Hello, Richard. It's Nicola and I'm calling from Ringmar.
Hello. How are you?
Yeah, very tired, but had a very good weekend.
Oh,
Bit of gardening in my dad's garden with my sister and running around getting some stuff off of Facebook Marketplace for free. So
all good.
Yes, you know those big double-handled black buckets that you use for the potatoes, so they're the 30 litres.
Yeah.
I got some that size, but I got some right up to 120 litres. I got 22 in total.
Wow.
And the lady was giving them away free, so I gave her a donation for the Cat Protection League.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. That kind of, I think we mentioned Facebook Marketplace earlier. It just goes to show that if you look on there, you can find some really good stuff to use on your garden or allotment.
Yeah, it's a bit more touch and go down in Cornwall. They seem to sell most of their stuff, I think, because they're limited on funds, a lot of people down there, because their wages are lower and it's seasonal and all that horrible stuff. But if you come to outskirts of Brighton or where my dad lives, or my sister was saying where she lives up in Holmes Chapel, it's quite an affluent area, and the stuff that is just put on there for free, sheds, gardening equipment. There was a log splitter going for free, and it was a hydraulic one. So I missed out on that one today, but yeah, always got my nose in it every day, several times a day when I'm having my coffee or tea or whatever, or having to sit down.
Yeah.
So yes.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, I'm guessing on your land that you have down in Cornwall, you're looking, if you haven't done already, planting some fruit trees and bushes.
I brought a lot. I'm talking as if I'm there at the moment. I took a load down from Brighton when I moved, so I took down about 20. I bought 8 patio ones from Lidl's. That's why I was asking Digwell about that, because I really like the patio ones which are shorter, because I quite often find the ones that they seem to do in the supermarket, they say they dwarf, but they end up being sort of 8-10 foot. They don't seem to know they're on dwarf rootstock, if that's what they're on.
Yeah.
So I've gone for more the patios. I want to get more. I've got about 7 cherry trees and I want to get some more, but I want a lot of the more patio ones so that I can put them in a cage to stop all the birds eating them.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I think somebody was saying that at the beginning they had trouble with their fruit being eaten by pigeons. So you grow yours in a fruit cage, or you're planning to?
I will be, because where I took fruit trees down in tubs, it was like I was moving myself through COVID, and I'd like be going back from Cornwall one day and thinking, oh, I'll be back in 2 days, and that those cherries will just be ripe and ready for me to eat, and I'd get back down and they'd been totally stripped. So yes, being rural, they're going to be more keen to get my fruit, and there's less cat density now, obviously, where I am, so it's easier for them to get them without the cats catching them.
Fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Saying that, my cat did bring in a newt into the house the other day and a frog, so left him in the lounge.
It's that time of year when they're starting to come out the woodwork, isn't it, these animals?
Yes, luckily both of them survived and they both went back in the pond. So, but I'm hoping to get my back meadow terraced in the next few weeks, and then I can start putting all my new pallet collars for raised beds in, and then get some permaculture going in. So I've got a lot of wood I felled last year, and I've got a load of wood chip that's come off those sycamores. And then I shall buy some topsoil in and some mushroom compost.
Nice, nice, nice.
And I'll have my nice new commercial greenhouse.
Lucky you indeed. It must be nice to have that much extra land, because I think with tonight's conversation on fruit, I love growing fruit, but with limited amount of space, there's only so many varieties or so much fruit we can grow, unless you just grow fruit and no veg. How many acres?
I had fruit trees in my front and back garden in Brighton, so it was about 15 foot by about 20 foot in the front garden, and then I had 50 foot, or maybe it was by 30 foot in the back garden, and I had fruit trees everywhere. Oh. The only thing I found was I actually had Gooseberry, and they just used to grow like mad and no fruit or very little fruit, maybe the odd one. And they were growing like 15 foot, but I've got one that's managed to get down to Cornwall with me, so I'll put that somewhere and just let it do its own thing, and the birds can have it if it ever does fruit. But we're a lot warmer in Cornwall. We've been a lot wetter, but we've had hardly any frost, which is a bit of a negative, because obviously it doesn't kill all the nasties off as well. And we stay lighter for about half an hour more than they do up here. So where it says 6 o'clock here, it's 6:30 in Cornwall.
Yeah. Oh, interesting, which makes it a bit better for fruit growing.
Yeah, well, my back meadow is going to be mainly veg, and I've got some rose bushes because I bought about 80 rose bushes the other day.
Right.
And then that's about a fifth of an acre. And then the front meadow, which is about a quarter of an acre, is going to be fruit trees, duck pond, wildflowers, chickens.
Yeah. Nice. Very nice.
Yes.
Very
I will
nice.
get round to doing a video and popping it to you, and you can fiddle with it and make it look more, because I'm no good at this editing nonsense, and I've got just a phone. So.
Well, that's right, because actually Ballysillian has just came up with asking for what is next week's topic. So next week, what I want to do is a show us your plot. It's the 1st of March, the beginning of spring. So I'd like to see everyone's plots, if they can send me some videos, including yours.
Yeah, if I send you lots of little short ones, because obviously I've got quite a big area, and to walk around it takes more than a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
Can you splice them together? Is that what?
Yeah, that's not a problem. That's not a problem.
Anyway, look, Richard, let me love you and leave you, and let me get back to watching.
Yeah. Okay. Lovely. You take care. Thank you very much for your phone call.
Take care, Richard. Bye.
Cheers.
All.
Bye. Bye. There we go. Hopefully you can hear that all right. That was Nicola Cornish Heaven down in Ringmer at the moment, Cornwall. Hopefully we're going to get a video of new land. But yes, next week I'm looking at doing a show us your plot. Show me your plot video extravaganza. Beginning of spring. I think it'd be nice to see things starting to spring into life. I hadn't heard of Pinebreeze or garden huckleberries before tonight's show. Every week we learn something new. Pinebreeze are delicious. In fact, Pinebreeze cost a fortune when they first came to the UK. A 6-fruit pallet cost £3 in Tesco's. I like a few growing. They are nice. I do like my Pinebreeze. I've got to grow more of them. They're just like growing strawberries, but different. Turbo Stream. I added fish of blood and bone when I planted my gooseberries. That won't do any harm. Fish, blood and bone always go well. I have a gooseberry plant in a pot. At least twice in the season, all the leaves disappear but grow back. Something is eating them, but I have no idea. Do you have any ideas what it is and what I can do? Do the leaves drop off and do you find them on the bottom, or are they eaten off? Good question, this. Let me know if you find the leaves have dropped off or they're eaten off. Judging by the fact you're saying something is eating them, but I have no idea what. Could be birds, but twice in a season. I'm a bit surprised about that. Let's know. Terry Stream says this video was unedited. I just paused and recorded. You won't want to see mine just yet, Ian says. It's fine. I'm happy to see yours right now. It's so we can keep coming back throughout the year and see how everyone else's plot or how your plot has progressed throughout the year is the idea. I need to cook an allotment for next week. Indeed. And it sounds like Gooseberry Swordfly. That's what I was wondering as well, actually, for Alison. If they're being eaten, they are eaten. Yes, so it's likely to be Gooseberry Swordfly, which is a particular type of fly. I'm trying to remember. There is a trick to keep them off, and I can't remember what it is because I've never suffered from it. Anna Jones also says it sounds like sawfly. So there's 3 of us who all think it's Gooseberry Swordfly. There is a trick to keep them off, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. But I think once you've got the idea, tap it into Google, and you're sure to find it all out. Right, guys. We've been an hour and a half, so I'm going to wrap it up. I hate ending it when we've just had a question come in. So anybody quickly wants to put into the comments a way of tackling the sawfly quickly, and we'll finish once we get a few answers. The leaves from the red gooseberries eaten last year. I presumed it was birds, hoping the move will cure it. Could be the birds, and most likely the birds. A Swordfly has 2 broods. Yes, of course, that makes a lot of sense. I just spray it with garlic water. So garlic tea, garlic water. That's one way to stop the Gooseberry Swordfly as an idea for Alison. Anybody else coming in with anything at the end? We'll give it a few more minutes. So quickly, like I said, next Sunday, show us your plots. So please do go and film something to show us off your plots, show us how they're doing. As I said, want to chronicle them throughout the year and see how everybody's is looking in comparison. It's not a competition or anything. It's just meant to have a bit of fun. I think you are meant to keep an eye out and manually pick Swordfly off the bushes. That's one way. I think there is a way to stop the brood from, if I remember right, the brood's in the soil and then climbs up, eats the leaves, and then disappear. That's what I can. Digger says, open prune the bush, Swordfly like it all cramped up. Washing up liquid with a question mark from Turbo Stream and Jenny Hullett. Some insect eggs show up under an ultraviolet torch, then you can see them. Treat or clear as you wish. So if you've got an ultraviolet torch, go and have a look at that and see how it works. So next Sunday, show us your plot. So please do get your videos going for that. What have I got on the podcast? On the podcast coming out tomorrow night, I've got a little bit of what to sow and do throughout March. And then I've got a video coming out, just my usual diary videos. Just trying to build the YouTube channel up, particularly at the moment, but a bit of fun. Clearing up under the bushes in autumns to stop overwintering maggots is another way to stop them as well. So keeping tidy. And Ian says, cheers, Richard. I don't know how you can be so informative each week. I try my best, is all I can say. And Digwell says to Anna, yeah, clearing up over winter helps to tidy the things up. So there we go. I think we have cracked that one from Alison. I'm hoping that answers everyone's question on fruit as well. Been great having this conversation. Been great having this chat. I think everyone's input is always very, very useful. Right, I'm going to wrap this up. We're going slightly into overtime, and I'm sure my wife is going mad asking where I am. So I'm going to close this up. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. Back again next week. So until then, please take care and have some good gardening time. What do I do? Here we go. Take care, guys. All the best.